Welcome back to the second half of iNN's Headlines and Beyond from March 29th, 2012. When we left off, we were talking about Obama's stance on oil subsidies. Um, and once again, the Republican answer to this has been less than spectacular. Um, what is not mentioned in a lot of this stuff, and this is again, you have to look at how the Democrats and the social left frame things. They talk about freedom, they talk about equality, but when you get down to the details, it's anything but this, and it's primarily this is the social left and the humanitarians and the social left are like people who walk around uh, telling everybody how they're humanitarians, how they're going to help people, and they'd like you to help. They've always got a tray handing, they've got the handout for a tray asking everyone to pitch in their fair share. As soon as they get that tray back, after everyone's put in their fair share, they go in there, they put their hand in and take a chunk out for themselves, and then give the minor portion of what's left over. Right, they take out most of the cash, give the cash to themselves, and give a small part to the people they're supposed to be helping. And this is how they support themselves. If you go into a community agency or any of these social organizations or any of these charities primarily help themselves. And we've seen this in 2012. It's only 2012 that the charity that was there primarily helped themselves. Only a little bit was done, and they did things in the name of social justice. They threw out these buzzwords of social justice and community organization and bringing wealth and prosperity through education and awareness and through creativity. And they threw out a lot of buzzwords that really meant nothing. And when you sat down and you look at the brass tacks and you ask yourself the question, how much money did they bring in? How much money did they have in the bank? And how much did they give to themselves? And you do this by looking at how much they actually gave to a specific poor people in Africa. And it turned out they gave nothing to poor people in Africa. They simply handed the money over. They handed about $3 million over. They brought in $9 to $12 million. And of that, $3 million went out to another organization that was supposedly African. Now, who this organization was, and if they had any connections to these people, we have no idea. So basically, after it leaves this organization, it goes out to another organization. It doesn't go directly to the people who are poor. And we see this. We saw this in Haiti. We saw all the money people that donated, all the phone calls. Everyone was getting involved, and everyone was hallelujah, great. Everyone give money because they were going to help the people. They were going to help the people down in Haiti. Most of the money didn't show up. And so as we start seeing this, this is sort of the record of the social left. When they say something, you need to start asking the question, what are they really saying? And asking, what are they going to take from us? Because they're not there for altruistic reasons. They're there for themselves. And when you look at these oil subsidies, what you'll find out is that a lot of the oil subsidies need to be there because they've done such a bad job of managing how oil wealth is gotten in the United States. It used to be a lot open. It used to be open. It used to be freer. But the government stepped in and through successive, we'll call progressive governments, these are the socialist governments, more and more taxes, more and more regulations had been placed on these groups, on the oil companies. And we've seen now under Obama that Obama has issued, in terms of his regulatory fees and licensings, he's imposed 25 times the amount of regulatory costs to a business as compared to George Bush. And he's done 8 times more than what Bill Clinton had done. So when you look at these industries and how much these industries are paying out, and this gives an example of a regulatory costs and how these costs sort of they're basically they're basically, this is right now Obama and his gang. I'm gonna call him his gang, and we can even call him Massa Obama as a slave master, because no one has the right to refuse to pay taxes in the United States anymore. So everybody owes Obama whatever Obama thinks that people should pay. Everyone has to pay Obama this, and they say, "Oh, it's not for me. It's not for me." Oh, it is for him. And I said, all you have to do is look at India, look at China, look at the economic growth that they're having in there. That's based on the Republican economic policies. It's not based on Obama's policies. Obama's policy, you want to see where we're going? Look at Greece. Also, look at Greece, Spain, and Italy. These are Obama's policies, and this is where we're heading. In terms of economic policy. If you want to see Republican economic policy, look at China and India. Then ask yourself, if it's the economy stupid, where do you want to be? Do you want to be in the Republican India and China, or do you want to be in the Obama socialist Europe, Greece, Spain, and Italy? That's your choices. Those are your choices right there, and we can see it right there. And what happens now is that, and I'll be showing this in a documentary that I'm working on for iNN, for the channel here. It shows police officers ticketing and shutting down children's lemonade stands. And they say, well, if you pay us X amount of money for a vendor's permit, this solves the problem. Right? So what happens? They come out and they say, oh, there's a public safety concern. We have to shut down this 9-year-old's lemonade stand. Right? Oh, but by the way, if you have $75, this will alleviate the safety concerns that we have. Now, to me, from when I was a kid, this sounds like the school bully. This does not sound like the person who's there to serve and protect you. Right? On the police card, it says serve and protect, and on the other side of the car, or somewhere on the card, it says deed speak. Well, if your deeds look and behave like the school bully, then you're not there to serve and protect. You're there to bully, and you are the bully. And not surprisingly, when you look at Obama's foreign policy, and this does extend to oil here, we see the exact same bullying tactics. A lot of the politics, a lot of the covert operations that go on in the world all have to do with this issue of control, and basically it comes from a bullying, but it's not about freedom, it's about power and control. And one of the comments that has come out of the BBC, and again, this stuff has to be dug. This was not up front. This was sort of behind, and you had to dig in the backlinks to find this. And it was an opinion piece put out there about what's going on in the IIC, the International Criminal Court. And it says, is the International Criminal Court? It says, International Criminal Court, this is the quote here, International Criminal Court was set up to try those responsible for the most serious crimes in the world, such as genocide, crimes against humanity, and war crimes. So far, all 24 people facing charges, and the only person convicted, are from Africa, leading to accusations of bias. The African Union has said members of countries should stop cooperating with the court. And now ask yourself, how many white Europeans from France, from Germany, from the UK, who are now officially supporting the IIC, how many of these people have been charged for war crimes? And then ask yourself if the IIC is biased or not, or if the ICC is being used to create a legal means or a cover to create regime change. So then when we go back to answer this whole issue about oil, and I refer you to the documentary Daniel Yergin's The Prize, you will find that the Royal Dutch Shell and a lot of the European oil firms have been now taken over and run by the government. They've all been nationalized. So these are government enterprises. And behind the scenes, these government enterprises receive billions of dollars in government subsidies because these government enterprises, like Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac in the United States, don't have to make money because anytime they lose money, they're always bailed out by the taxpayer. And this last collapse in 2007 about the housing market surrounding Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac were bailed out. These were the primary banks that were bailed out when a lot of the money that was supposed to go to shore up these bonds, these we'll call it toxic assets. Most of the toxic assets were Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac assets. So, given this, and given the understanding that that Royal Dutch Shell, which is one of the largest oil companies in the world, is routinely getting contracts, and now smaller American players, which were independent, are now being told that they're going to have their subsidies cut. Then one has to wonder, why aren't they going after the foreign oil companies and only going after American oil companies? And this is by a president who says he's actively working to try to resolve the economic crisis in the United States. Well, how does putting American oil companies at a disadvantage to large global government-owned oil companies supporting the American economy? It does. Here's where it does well. If you're a union guy and you're a union boss and you're in bed with Obama, it does wonders for you because why? You have this large union-based Royal Dutch Shell coming in, who will take over the smaller independent firms and prevent them who really don't use union labor. They use contract labor as opposed to union labor. And this is where a lot of the fight is in terms of you talk about this, the jobs in America. Where have all the jobs gone? Well, the jobs have all become contract jobs. They're not. The union jobs are in the private America, and this is where you see the shrinking middle class. Whenever you hear this talk about working families, they're talking about unions and the loss of union jobs. And this is after unions have pushed these plants into bankruptcy. Like if you look at any of the steel plants that were up in Ohio, in Pennsylvania, like Bethlehem Steel, I have these videotapes from the 1990s when these plants were still open and operating. And you have the left, all right, the environmentalists and the union people pushing these companies into bankruptcy. Now that the jobs are gone and these towns are literally, like Flint, Michigan, are literally flat on their backs, they're now saying that, they're now crying and saying, what happened to, to the Union America? Well, the unions destroyed Union America. They pushed the companies that they depended on for their jobs out of business because they thought the government could come in and do a better job. But the government didn't come in and do a better job. The government came in and it caused these plants to shut down. And as their larger European cousins came in, and their brother, the socialist brother, the European socialist brother came in, they shut these plants down and moved them. I mean, a lot of the big, large multinational firms will come in and say, oh yeah, we'll support the unions, but they won't. They won't support the workers. The ultimate goal is power and consolidation of power in the marketplace, and this is how they play. So ultimately, the unions get burned. But now the unions, if you go look at the union, where the union pension funds are, the union pension funds are heavily invested in the stock market, and this includes the oil stocks. And yet you have arguments from the social left, and the people that continually come up from the social left are either comedians or they're entertainers and not economic personnel. And this is what I found particularly disturbing, that we're not seeing from the left anyone of any particular depth of quality come up on standard media. The stuff that you see in terms of quality is really behind the scenes in journals and magazines that the average public doesn't see. but in the public view, you get these, you know, they brought up a comedian for the Democratic left who was arguing the Democratic point of view that things need to be equal and that these big rich oil companies shouldn't be getting tax breaks and they shouldn't have these subsidies and so on and so forth. Yet he doesn't realize, and even though it was pointed out to him, and the Republican wasn't successfully able to get her point across, that the workers' pensions. Right, the union workers' pensions are in the oil company. If the oil company does not do well and cannot compete against their foreign competitors, then the pensions are going to suffer. Yeah, but yet this argument couldn't really be brought across, and it didn't successfully land. Even though this was actually on Fox, that argument sort of really didn't fly when you had, they were trying to be conciliatory to the other side, but it didn't fly. The guy on the left who was a comedian, and that's probably was why he couldn't understand it. He was a comedian, he wasn't anything else. Couldn't understand what stocks had to do with a person's pension fund, and how attacking a company who had stocks on the stock market wouldn't be a good idea if your pension had these stocks inside of it. So Obama's whole concept of limiting tax subsidy, but still going out there and taxing the rich for the poor, to give to the poor, is a non-starter, because all you have to do again is say, and this all you have to do is look at the at China and India, who are following the Republican model. Look at Europe. Ask yourself where you want to be. If you're there altruistically to help the small person, to give to the poor, to really help these people come up, then you have to look at the Indian and Chinese model, because that's the one that opens up the wealth for the largest number of people, because you can bring yourself up. If you want to create poverty, all you have to do is look at Europe, and Europe is following the socialist model. Where is Obama on this? Obama, although he has George Soros, who's a billionaire, although he has Warren Buffett, who's a billionaire, although he has the support of Richard Branson, who is a billionaire, even though he has the support of Bill Gates and Oprah and all these other billionaires that are in Hollywood, he still doesn't have enough money to pay for his stuff, for the stuff he wants to do. He says, "Oh, we need to find money to pay for everything." Well, the problem is that if he was managing things properly, that wouldn't be the case, because he's got a lot of money. He's got a lot of friends with money right in front of him, and if he doesn't know where to get the money, then the United States, with Obama as a president, has a real problem. And then this continues on out into foreign policy, because this xenophobia, this sort of Eurocentric view of the world, now has them going in Syria and pushing for war in Syria. They're still pushing for war in Syria, where you have now the Assad has accepted the peace, some of the terms that Kofi Annan has done, but it was conditioned upon that the opposition sit down and start agreeing to this as well. But the thing is, they failed to get the opposition in Syria together. They're now fighting amongst themselves, the opposition. But yet you have the UK, the United States, and all these others doubling their commitment in terms of the aid that they're giving. They say they're giving humanitarian aid, but if you look behind the scenes, you start looking into Hacklet and all these major defense contractors, you see that more than humanitarian aid is getting to the rebels. What's getting to the rebels is arms, ammunition, missiles, RPGs. All the stuff of warfare is getting to the rebels, and this war is being funded and being fueled from the outside. And the dynamics is already shaping up, because all we have to do is look at what the UN did in Libya. Right? Has the Libyan crisis been resolved? No, it's getting worse. Today we have a report of more clashes continuing, more people dying in Libya. This report has not popped up on any of the news broadcasts in the United States. I didn't see this on any really in any of the headlines. This was sort of maybe mentioned on the ticker, but it was not in the headline news itself. It was primarily Trayvon again. The circus around Trayvon is continuing on, and everything else sort of seemed to fall behind. We see that the issue in Libya has tipped over to Mali. Mali is now going through their coup. They're trying to the Mali leaders trying to start stabilizing things, but the Western governments aren't happy about this, and so the Western governments now are trying to tip the Mali coup leader over. And it looks like there might be another conflict inside of Mali if the European-backed governments of Western Africa decide to step in and start tipping the scales back in favor of another group. They can start a war in there. It looks like Uganda, where the Western-backed governments have had issues with certain policies in Uganda. Looks like Uganda might be going to war again. You might have another war starting up in Sudan. Again, here you'll have Western-backed influences in there. In other words, anywhere you see the UN involved, the push and the stated push for democratic freedoms, they say the democratic freedoms, are all within and must be within the view of Western thought, the Western ideas of freedom, and particularly this whole concept of socialism. And then Obama has come out and stated this directly, and same thing with some of the ministers from the United Kingdom, stated that if a country did not support gay rights and gay freedoms, that this would be a country that they would consider for regime change. So regime change now is a legitimate tool being used, and now it's being used to foster not only for it's not about, first it was strategic interest, then it became economic interest, and now it's about social interest as well, has been added to the list of conditions that regime change will be acceptable under. And then this, and ask yourself, how many of these leaders who are considering this are now being called up on human rights crimes, as you're having people being, continually being killed in Libya with these donated weapons from Europe. The number of drone attacks that are killing people, the number of people being killed by drone attacks in Yemen and all these other places, don't these people matter? I mean, can't you? Is anyone going to be charged with war crimes for killing all these people? And then how can you turn around and say, "Oh, we have to go after Syria and protect the people there," when you're killing all these other people? And it's not for freedom. If you sit down and look at what's going on, it's not about freedom. Freedom is the rhetoric. It's about control. There's a lot of these countries. There's gold. There's mineral wealth. There's oil. This is what this is about. And a lot of the areas where they're fighting and sending money in to fight, where they're creating chaos, is where China also has interest, and there's other countries in there competing for mineral wealth interest as well. And it's basically, if Europe does not, and the U.S. by proxy, have the mineral resources they want or feel they need in their control, they're willing to go out and kill for it. This is where the U.S. foreign policy falls right now. It's still that way under the Republicans, but under the Democrats, it flies under the flag of international socialism. And this is why, if you look at some of the groups who oppose Obama, you start seeing about this whole thing about the New World Order, and about how they're coming to create these gulags. And the thing is that while in some cases they go a little far with this, where their fears, and again, this is where propaganda takes off. Propaganda is not all lies or all fantasy. You take a fear and the legitimacy it's based on, and then you extend it outwards. And what you get is this grand conspiracy, which is essentially a paranoia, that everything is doomed because there's all this whole massive machinery conspiring against your freedoms and liberties. But if you really look at the dynamics of what's happening and how things work out, and you look at the dynamics particularly, and this is where you have to look next, is you have to get into understanding covert operations and Cold Wars. You'll find that the old dynamics of mutual alliances, I mean, that means you're allying with somebody simply for a mutual interest, and once that interest is over, your alliance is now gone. That you then all of a sudden you start seeing, rather than a homogeneous conspiracy, you see a lot of different groups with a lot of different interests working with each other on common interests, but then when the common interest is over, the alliance ends and they align with another group who have common interests that they want to achieve at that time. And this battle goes on and on and on and on. You also see in history that the progressives, the socialists, have never succeeded at anything they wanted to achieve. They've always wound up destroying themselves. I mean, all you have to do to understand where the socialists are coming from is look at the eugenics movements and look at what happened to communism in Russia. You want to see where this is going to end up? Look at what happened to Russia. Look at what happened to the eugenics in Germany, which became the National Soviet, which became the Nazis. Look what happened there. And then you can say, when these people are proposing the exact same things, they're proposing the exact same theories, you can now say, this is where this is going to end. That it's not going to end well for them or anybody else. But you can also say that they're not unanimous in their views, that they can be fought, that the direction that we're going in can be changed for the better. And this was seen in Winston Churchill. Winston Churchill was the lone voice in the wilderness. And he eventually changed things. So, you can change things. If your mind is open enough, if you're open to self-criticism, then you can change the things in the world. But if you're not open, if you're not willing to look at yourself in terms of being open-minded, and looking at at other experiences in terms of the people around you, then more often than not, you will doom yourself by your own hand. All right, that's about it for tonight. I will see you on Monday when we start the news for next week. All right, take it easy.